All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk briefly a little bit about scenes 5 and 6 today because this is where we see that Lady Macbeth has died. She has killed herself, which we see some sort of stabbing or suicide or poison in every Shakespearean play. So we knew that it was inevitable, but in Macbeth's famous Tomorrow speech, he kind of also realizes that at this point, there's no coming back from this. He's seen pretty much all of the horrors at this point, and he's at his lowest point, right? He has reached the pinnacle of madness. And then in scene 6, we see that um, they are surrounded. At the end of scene 5, we see that they've disguised themselves behind the branches, and the forest is moving. And at this point, I think Macbeth has accepted his fate. And so keep up with the notes about different types of leadership. My Act 5 notes are really a culmination of certain topics, and just reminding you about a few things. But your attendance question for today is to go back and reread Macbeth's Tomorrow speech in scene 5 and discuss the exigence. And remember, the exigence is the motivating force that provokes this particular speech. What's brought it on? And be mindful of the obvious. It's okay to address the obvious, but move the conversation forward. Why would that be something that would motivate this new assertion or observation? All right. The last couple of days, we've been talking a little bit about your suggested framework for research. Thank you, those of you that have actually opened the document and attempted to work through it. I think the conversations that we've had have been productive, but I know that this week is crazy with grades due. So if you would like to run things by me, send me an email. You can text it to me via Remind, or make sure you schedule time with me next week so we can talk through it. But I want to show you my completed framework. Remember, I talked about not necessarily going through it by bullet point, since I'm a more visual learner, and I wanted to talk to you about this strategy, this inverted pyramid strategy. These top 3 things I've talked about at length this week. These were my topics that I wanted to address. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with like societal expectations. I know I want to talk about Lady Macbeth. And then I've explored some outside factors that have influenced her kind of growth and progression throughout the play. We've talked about feminism specific to the time period, systemic limitations with regard to gender expectations or her social status or marriage. Religion and values can also associate with the supernatural. So we've talked about these at length for outside factors that have motivated Lady Macbeth in relation to kind of some of the topics that I was thinking about. And then I also briefly mentioned yesterday some real life examples where I've seen, you know, systemic limitations with regard to what society expects of women. And we've seen that with Princess Diana, we've seen it with Jackie O, we've seen it with Britney Spears. Those were just some of the major ones that came to mind. I mean, I'm sure there's more. I could go with, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I can go, lots of different directions. Kamala Harris, any sort of female in a higher ranking status. So at this point, I'm ready to talk about what is the running thread? What do I see with all of these things that I've brainstormed? And remember, how am I going to move it forward? I don't necessarily need to like win an argument, but I should be able to notice, some things that I find interesting. And so you could tell my thinking is all over the place, but these were kind of what the things that I wanted to mention. So the first thing was using keywords from some of those outside factors that I had already brainstormed. I said it is important to understand systemic limitations, specifically of women, that influence or impose oppressive long-term consequences. So, what are the most important things that I need to be able to define in my research paper? What are the systemic limitations, and what would these oppressive long-term consequences be? For a defensible kind of statement, that would work, but I now would have exactly what I would want to research next week. And it's just, a draft. I'm not beholden to this by any means, but I wanted to be able to figure out how do these things kind of go together. And so another direction I had, and I had a hard time putting it in words because there were so many different facets that I wanted to talk about. But I said unequitable societal expectations are systemically designed to impose limitations upon women. So it's just another way of saying it. I would have to decide, what are these unequitable societal expectations? I'd really need to think through what things were in common and what are the limitations, right? How are they systemically designed to limit women? And so I'm probably going to write from more of a feminist lens. Those are things that I'm interested in. Obviously, I identify with this as a female, a particularly strong, I consider myself strong, educated female. And I've noticed that there are some inequities in my personal experience that I've also seen through literature and through real life examples. And so, whatever it is that you're interested in, go with it. Use your strengths. Obviously, you can tell mine are not perfect. I don't expect for you to have anything, you know, completely mapped out on paper, but I could take this visual and start a research plan. I would go in with the direction of what I'm looking at in a way that, I want to explore these things. And so, if you need help talking it out, that's what I'm good at. Okay. So make sure you reach out to me so that way I can help you with it. I know that everybody's work schedules are kind of crazy, and people are kind of coming back in person and not. But this is a really important piece that I think really does require you and I to dialogue. So if there are any concerns about that, just let me know. So at this point today, I should see, the majority of that framework done. If you wait for the conversational piece until tomorrow, that's fine. But those of you that have yet to open the document or have yet to even consider, any of these issues or these sections in the framework, you're going to be behind. And at this point, it is expected that you would have at least attempted the framework. All right. So questions for me, make sure you reach out. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow or we'll see you later on Zoom. Have a great Thursday, everybody. Take care.